So I've divided this video into 3 parts. First, I will explain the reference picture, second, demonstration of the colors, and lastly, the main painting process. The timestamps are in the description if you want to watch any specific part. This is the picture I'll be using as a reference. I like to study the reference picture before starting the actual painting. It becomes easier to paint if I know where the shadows and highlights are going to be. Here, the brightest parts are the middle of the sky and the shoreline where the waves are breaking up, and these are the darkest parts. To make this painting come together, we have to paint this part specifically. Next, I am mixing up the colors for the painting. Please ignore the color palette. I am recording this after the actual painting was done, so the palette is a mess. I am just trying to show you which colors was used in the painting. So the first row is for the sky and the sea, the rest is for the shore. For the darkest value, I am using black mixed with a little bit of blue and white gouache for the highlights. First, I am sketching out some outline, just the shoreline and the horizon to help me understand the basic shapes while I paint. Here I am using a light consistency of blue with a flat brush for the underpainting. It's a very diluted color. In the reference, the middle of the sky is very bright blue and some yellow on the lower side. I am trying to replicate that. The rest of the area is in the clouds, and I am going to use purple for the clouds. In the reference, they are not so bright, but I want the colors to look more vibrant. It gives a fantasy kind of vibe. If your watercolor palette doesn't contain purple, you can just mix crimson and blue. It will give you the same purple shade. With watercolor, you have to use many layers to achieve the right type of result that you want. It's tricky to paint clouds, and I always struggle with the shapes. When I'm satisfied with how the clouds look, I'm dropping a few splashes of water on the paper. It gives a cool watercolor effect as the color will bleed into each other and to make the painting look more interesting. Next, I'm painting the ocean with the light Prussian blue. It's the lower half of the painting. As you can see, I am testing any paint before applying them to the painting to see if they are in right consistency, because the colors look different on the palette than they do on the paper. And it's my first time painting any ocean. I chose this picture specifically because the composition is quite simple as there are only low waves. So I thought it would be easy to paint. Brightest part of the ocean is in the middle part. That's where the water is reflecting the sunlight. So I am painting around it. I'm starting with the corners and gently blending out in the middle with a damp brush so that the middle remains brightest. The rock on the left side is the darkest area, so I'm painting it with black. Next, I am outlining the shoreline with a detail brush and varying the thickness of the line to make it more realistic. The first layer has dried, so I am intensifying the colors and painting some texture to make it more realistic. I am constantly looking at the reference and correcting the colors and painting small shapes to make the illusion of wave. It's important to leave white space for the highlights, otherwise the painting looks flat. Most of the beginners just paint the whole area with one flat color. I remember when I was learning to paint for the first time, I used to paint the entire area with one flat color. It would just make my painting look cartoony and not realistic at all. And the highlighted areas tend to have different shades, so if you're trying to paint realistically, it's important to use a reference photo. A lot of artists use reference pictures, it's nothing to be embarrassed about. For the shore, I am using burnt sienna and white gouache for the highlighted area, as they are much more opaque than watercolors. Here I am painting some highlight on the water to make it more realistic and outlining the waves to give them more depth so that they don't look like a flat surface. I found it very hard to paint the sea foam, they are very tricky. If you want to learn watercolors, I have made a playlist of videos that I found very helpful. Just click the card showing above the screen. So I let the painting to dry completely and went back with a brighter shade of blue to intensify the colors. If you do try this painting, please do tag me on Instagram at artsblockanjum, as I would love to see what you create with this painting tutorial. And please let me know in the comment section what types of videos you would like to watch on my channel, tutorials or time-lapse.